The silence of the meal isn't empty, it's a shared breath. But even as the tension eases, the reality of their rivalry still flickers in the background as they finish their food. The air in the kitchen shifts from heavy confrontation to something more domestic, yet equally fragile. Jimin finishes his bowl first, setting his spoon down. With a soft asterisk clink asterisk, he watches Jungkook, who is eating with a focus that suggests he's trying very hard not to look back. The danger has passed, but the awkwardness is just beginning to settle in. "I'll do the dishes," Jimin says, breaking the quiet. He reaches for Jungkook's empty bowl. Jungkook instinctively pulls it back. "I've got it. I cooked. You shouldn't have to clean." "It's a peace offering, Jungkook. Just let me do it," Jimin insists, his fingers grazing Jungkook's knuckles again as he tugs the bowl away. This time, Jungkook doesn't flinch. He lets go, his eyes trailing Jimin as he walks to the sink. The sound of running water fills the room. Jungkook doesn't leave. He leans against the kitchen table, watching Jimin's back. The sight is strangely grounding. Jimin, in his oversized hoodie, sleeves pushed up, humming a low, wordless tune as he scrubs the pot. "Hey," Jungkook says suddenly, his voice raspy. Jimin turns his head slightly. "Yeah, about what I said. About not being able to think when you're around." Jungkook looks down at his own hands, his voice dropping. "I wasn't just being dramatic. I've always known where I stood with you when we were competing. But here, it's harder to keep the walls up." Jimin turns off the faucet and dries his hands on a towel, turning fully to face him. "The walls were exhausting anyway. Maybe we just try being roommates who don't want to kill each other for a week. See how that goes." Jungkook stands up, walking toward the door of the kitchen, but he stops beside Jimin. He hesitates for a second, then reaches out and awkwardly, almost shyly, pats Jimin's shoulder. It's a stiff gesture, but it's the most honest thing he's done in years. "A week," Jungkook agrees, a ghost of a smirk appearing on his face. "But if you touch my protein powder again, the truce is over." Jimin laughs, a bright, genuine sound that echoes through the small apartment. "Deal, now go to bed. You look like you haven't slept since we moved in." As Jungkook walks down the hallway, he feels lighter than he has in months. The rivalry isn't dead, but for the first time, the space between them doesn't feel like a void. It feels like a beginning. The next morning, the sunlight filters through the thin curtains of the living room, hitting the kitchen floor, where everything changed the night before. Jimin is the first one up. He's moving quietly, trying to honor the truce, but the smell of fresh coffee eventually lures Jungkook out of his room. He looks different in the morning, hair messy, eyes sleep heavy, wearing an oversized black shirt that makes him look less like a rival and more like a person who finally slept. Jungkook stops at the kitchen entrance, his eyes immediately finding Jimin. There's a brief, habitual flash of defensiveness in his posture, but he catches himself. He remembers the 1-week deal. "Morning," Jimin says, leaning against the counter with a steaming mug. He gestures toward a second mug, sitting on the coaster. "I made enough for 2. No poison, I promise." Jungkook lets out a dry, morning huff, not quite a laugh, but close. He walks over and takes the mug, his fingers brushing Jimin's as he grabs the handle. This time, the jolt is still there, but neither of them pulls away. Thanks, Jungkook mutters. He takes a sip, leaning against the counter, beside Jimin. They stand in a silence that is finally, truly comfortable. For the first time, they aren't looking for ways to outdo each other. There's no talk of grades, rankings, or who's winning the month. I have a lot of editing to do today, Jimin says, glancing at Jungkook. If I'm too loud in the living room, just tell me. Don't just get mad and slam your door. Jungkook looks into his coffee, his expression thoughtful. I'll try, and if you need a break. There's a new place down the street. They have those snacks you mentioned once. Jimin blinks, surprised. You remembered that? Jungkook shrugs, a slight blush creeping up his neck. I told you, I notice everything you do. It's a habit. The power dynamic has shifted. It's no longer about who can be the coldest or the most distant. Now the challenge is seeing who can be the most honest. Jimin reaches out and nudges Jungkook's shoulder with his own. A habit, huh? Well, as far as habits go, that one's not so bad. Jungkook finally meets his eyes, and for the first time, the fear is completely gone. In its place is a quiet curiosity, a wonder about what happens when two rivals stop fighting and start actually living together. Yeah, Jungkook says, a small, genuine smile finally breaking through. Not so bad. They stand there for a while longer, two roommates sharing the morning light, realizing that the hardest part of the rivalry wasn't the competition. It was the distance they no longer want to keep. The fragile peace of the morning carries into the afternoon. But the true test of a truce isn't the quiet moments, it's the messy ones. Jimin is sprawled on the sofa, surrounded by his laptop and various notebooks, his brow furrowed in deep concentration. He's so focused on his work that he doesn't hear Jungkook emerge from his room. Now dressed in gym gear, Jungkook stops, watching Jimin from across the room. He notices the way Jimin chews on the end of his pen when he's stuck, a detail he's seen 1,000 times in libraries, but never this close. He walks toward the kitchen to grab his water bottle, but as he passes the sofa, his foot catches on a stray charging cable. He stumbles, his hand flying out to catch his balance. He ends up leaning over the back of the sofa, his face inches from Jimin's. Jimin gasps, spinning around so fast his laptop nearly slides off his lap. Whoa, you okay? Jungkook is frozen. His arms are braced on either side of Jimin's shoulders, effectively pinning him against the cushions. The familiar space is gone again, replaced by the scent of Jimin's laundry detergent and the warmth radiating between them. I'm fine, Jungkook says, but he doesn't move. His gaze is locked on Jimin's eyes, which are wide and shimmering with a soft, startled light. Instead of pulling back with a snarky comment about the mess, Jungkook looks down at the screen. You're stuck on the transition, he says quietly, his voice vibrating in the small space between them. Jimin blinks, his breath hitching. How did you know? I told you, Jungkook repeats, his voice dropping to a low, intimate murmur. I notice everything. You always tap your left foot when the middle section isn't flowing right. Jimin feels a heat that has nothing to do with the afternoon sun. You've been watching my foot. Jungkook's jaw tightens. But this time it isn't from anger. It's the look of someone finally admitting defeat. It's hard not to watch you, Jimin. You're the most distracting person I've ever met. The silence that follows isn't awkward. It's heavy, with a new kind of tension, one that makes Jimin's pulse race. For an entirely different reason, he reaches up, his hand hesitating before resting lightly on Jungkook's forearm, feeling the solid muscle beneath the skin. Is that why you wanted me to stay away? Jimin asks softly. Because you were distracted. Jungkook finally breaks the gaze, his ears turning a deep shade of pink. He pushes himself up, finally giving Jimin space, but the air still feels charged. Maybe it's hard to win when I'm too busy wondering what you're thinking. He grabs his water bottle and heads for the door, but stops with his hand on the knob. He looks back over his shoulder, a playful, competitive glint returning to his eyes.